Hello, it's Chris here, and welcome back to another episode of Coaching Conversations. Today, we're going to be talking to you about how you can prepare a budget and what to know about preparing a budget for your business this new financial year. Hey, it's Chris, and welcome back to another episode of Coaching Conversations. I'm here with Tony again today. Tony, how are you?
I'm great, Chris. Thank you very much. And looking forward to another really insightful chat about one of my favourite subjects, again, sort of the money or the finances within business. So great to be here and talking to you.
Yeah, great. And today we're at that financial wisdom that you're about to impart, listeners and viewers, is all around budgets. And you've probably heard, if you're running a business right now, you've probably heard about budgets or doing a budget in some way, shape or form. And what I've found, particularly speaking with lots of business owners, is people are, steer away from this sort of thing because they have this idea or this myth that it's hard work or they don't know what they're doing or the accountant does it. But today we're wanting to, like you said when we were just chatting, Tony, debunk some of these myths around budgets and what it is, how important it is in your business, and how you can go about creating one. So why don't we start at the very beginning, Tony? What is a budget, and why do you need one in your business?
I'm going to keep it really simple, Chris, and say that really a budget is just a plan. And we all know, how important it is to plan, or, when we're actually going to do anything that we require a plan. So the idea of it is to be able to actually sort of plan out what we intend to do in the next 12 months in terms of a budget, if you like, for the year. But what it really does is it allows us to actually sort of make some really good strategic business decisions around sort of, the money side of things, what we do. It provides us with some real clarity and certainty, but also some confidence about the money side, if you like, of running our business. That's what I like about this is that I actually sort of feel more in control of what's happening within the business when I've got something that I can compare it against.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good. And I think for a lot of people, clarity, you mentioned, is going to be very important. Many people shy away from numbers in business, but today we're encouraging you to jump on in. Reason why we're talking about it today is we're obviously only 12 days into the new financial year. So now is the perfect time to be thinking about budgets and getting clear on your finances in your business. Okay, cool. Sorry, carry on, Tony.
Yeah, so I think the key thing about it is that it allows you to actually sort of, put in place something that you can measure yourself or your business against. So imagine if we're sort of looking at the next 12 months, into the future, and we're saying, what do we plan to do for this month, next month, the month after? And how do we actually sort of measure ourselves to make sure that that's actually happening or should be happening? And then also sort of, we can delve in and sort of go, well, okay, if that didn't happen as we planned it to, what can we do to actually turn that around? What can we do to change that? If we know and understand that that was our budget and we didn't do it, then how do we actually sort of bring about, some really good decision making to say, let's do more of that or let's do less of that, and see if that actually puts us in a better position for the following month rather than just allowing it to continue on.
Right. So when you're talking about those numbers, are you talking about sales and expenses or just one or the other? Can you clarify that a little bit more?
Look, the idea of a budget is to really sort of look at those key things within your business. So a really important one is the actual income, so the sales within the business. Right. So a really good way of actually putting together, a basic budget is just take what you did from last year. So if you took your finances and you broke them down over the whole of last year and you took that as a starting point, that would be a really good start for you. And just look at the income that you did in July last year and say, okay, that's where we're going to start. We want to actually do better than that. If I added 10% onto that, I'd be ahead of where I was last year. So the sales part is just one element of it. You can look at every single part of your financial elements in terms of your cost of goods, in terms of all of your, operating expenses to run the business. You can do a budget around all of those. And again, take what you did last year, add 10% on it, and that becomes your budget. even your level of profit for what you did for month to month. Have a look at what you did last year and go, hey, what would it be like if we made 10% better on that last year? That's how you can go about creating a very simple budget. And then all you've got to do is look at measuring those actual figures against what we plan to do. So at the end of the month, be able to have a look and go, hey, here's what we planned. This is what actually happened. Now, where are the variances and what decisions can I make to change any of that so that it becomes a better result for next month?
Right. So it's about planning what you, or estimating, or I guess let's go back to planning what you intend to make, but also planning what you intend to spend.
Yeah.
As well, because you said go from the expenses that you had last year. So, or your cost of goods as an example, using that as a measuring stick to determine what you are or not going to spend or make.
So it's about what comes in and what goes out, and what's left at the end. That's the most important part, Chris. But we can break down every single one of those elements and see where we're actually spending the money in the business. And then we can start to look at, okay, are there some areas where we could look at reducing that, for example? Is there areas where we can grow the business from a sales point of view so that we can sort of, just look at pushing that sort of sales area a little bit up and then reducing some of our cost areas a little bit down. And that's actually going to make a big difference on our bottom line in terms of our net profit or our operating profit at the end.
Right. So, and please clarify me here, the budget ultimately is acting as a target, something that we aim to hit or exceed, or what's the feeling on that?
Again, it's a target for us. If you look at it as, we're going to set ourselves some goals for this year, and every business should be doing this, particularly this time of the year, and saying, okay, what is it that we actually want to do by the end of this financial year? And you should be thinking about the level of profit that you want to make in the business. You should also be looking at the level of sales that you want to achieve for the business this year. Then break that back down into 12 monthly segments and look at, okay, what do we need to do now for this month particularly? Let's just talk about July. What do we need to do in July in order for us to be on track for what we want to do at the end of the year? That's basically the process of actually mapping out a budget for a business. Then let's look at the expenses. What do we actually have to spend in this business in order to get that level of sales? And what are we left with at the end? Because what we're left at the end with is the most important part. That's going to be our net profit. And again, think about how much profit you want to make or need to make in this business by the end of the year, and start breaking it down. That will give you a really good start for your budget process.
Wonderful. And you can do all of this from your P&L from last year.
You sure can. And that's what I'm saying. There's some great resources out there, Chris, in terms of there's some great sort of budget templates that you can use. I always send people to the business.gov.au website. There's a finance area within there. There's loads of resources in there that can help you. There's downloadable spreadsheets. There's lots of information about all the terminology. So if you're not sure around it, just try to educate yourself a little bit so that you're just a little bit more aware of what this actually means and how powerful it can be for you and for the business if you can get this right. And it's not about getting it right first time. It's just about trying to understand how it works.
Awesome. Great. So if you didn't know what a budget was or thought it was a scary thing, please, hopefully what Tony's just spoken about has uncovered that and removed the fear aspect to go, hey, it's really just, we're creating a set of targets that we really want to aim towards. You can do it by yourself, and really just wanting to look at creating a plan over the next 12 months for your business. Very good. So we understand, what it is now, and I guess why it's important. So what advice do you have for us, Tony, if we're wanting to go ahead and do it for ourselves?
Well, I think the first thing, Chris, is to get your head around what it is that you need to do. So maybe do a little bit of research, maybe sort of, try to, find out what it is that you need to be able to do to get yourself that little bit of confidence to put your first budget together if you've never done one before. Seek some advice or seek some help. Talk to your bookkeeper if you've got one. They know how to put a budget together. your accountant certainly should know how to put together a budget for you, but also maybe run it by them, see what they think, get some, you know, input from them, because they may be able to guide and help you and support you, as will your coach. So have a chat to these people. They are a valuable resource to you when it comes to this. It's like, I always say to people, you know, why are you in business? And most people say to me, because of the money. I'm saying, well, then just educate yourself a little bit to understand it better, to get your head around what you need to be able to do. It doesn't take much. You don't need to be an accountant. You don't need to study a long, lengthy course. You just need to know a little bit more to be able to actually sort of, you know, control and manage, you know, some of the numbers within your business.
Couldn't agree more. And it's one of those things where we hear it all the time as coaches, Tony, but someone says, oh, I'm not very good at that. But then straight away you might ask them, well, how much time do you spend getting better? And they're like, well, none. I'm like, well, you're going to stay not very good at it. But even if you could dedicate an hour a week or 20 minutes a week, learning a little bit more and a little bit more, you know, even if it was an hour, that's 4 hours a month that you're investing in learning how to get really good at managing your finances, or how to get good at creating a budget for your business, or the terminology that your accountant uses, educating yourself throughout that process. It's just small increments of time. Great. So obviously finding people that know how to do them, gaining some support, like you said, finding some valuable resources, or speaking to your coach. What else have you got?
So I think the next part is to then sort of get into the, you know, the actual planning side of things, you know. And I know, you know, a term that we always use is plan well and execute well, and you'll get the results that you're looking for. So the planning part of it is really just sort of trying to foresee what's happening in your business, so that you can make, like I said, those really important decisions, those strategic decisions for the business that will put you in a better space, better place, and financially sort of ahead of the game, which is sort of really what it is that you're trying to do. By planning to do that in terms of just investing some time, like I said, educating yourself a little bit, getting some advice around you, that's what's actually sort of really going to bring this about for you, Chris. And I've seen people do this. I've seen them turn around in a matter of weeks. And once they actually see it and they get it and they understand it, it's almost like it becomes a little bit addictive. People actually sort of then start to want to know more and do more. And they get really sort of quite obsessed with some of these numbers. But it's great because, you know, they've never really sort of been, I'm going to say, exposed to this, or they've never really seen the importance of it. And all of a sudden, once you sort of, you know, I suppose almost awaken the giant, so to speak, the giant comes out and he wants to, you know, he wants to make hay when the sun's shining. So I've, you know, personally seen this with my clients, where just investing a little bit of time with them and helping them to understand it, they can sort of see the difference that they can make in terms of how they performed last year to how they're actually performing this month. You know, that's what's really key.
Okay, very good. Okay, so getting really clear about the plan and sitting down and having a go at it. Okay, what else have you got lined up?
The last little part of this is, like we said, is to be able to execute it well. And I just want to talk a little bit about sort of, you know, what that looks like, so people can get sort of a bit of an idea in terms of what we mean by that. And, you know, think of these 3 questions to sort of ask yourself at the end of each week or month, whenever you're sort of reviewing those figures. And the first one is sort of like, how are we actually doing compared to budget? So have a look at what those figures are. And I always sort of go back to, you know, when I was sort of, you know, running cafes and restaurants and my business. And I used to look and go, okay, what is it that I have to do this week in order for this business to make money? And I had those numbers almost locked in my head. I knew exactly what they were, and I knew what we needed to do before I was going to take home any pay. So that I was really clear on that. And that's the sort of level of detail that you need to get to. You need to understand what those numbers are, so that you can start to sort of then go, okay, if I know that I'm reaching those numbers, I know that I'm doing okay. Then look at that next level down. Okay, let me start looking at what it's costing me. And then, like, let's actually look at the profit that I'm making each week, each month, and seeing whether we're actually sort of, you know, doing better or worse than budget. And the key thing is that to understand, you know, what the differences are why they came about, and then what it is that you need to now do. What are those decisions that you need to make in order to actually sort of avoid yourself getting into, that negative situation? So
Right.
the second question is, what must we now do to have a better result for next month or for next week, whatever sort of time frame that you're working on? And how can I keep, the positive differences and avoid those negative ones? What are some of the things that are within my control that I can do? Can I look at increasing my sales? Can I look at reducing some of those costs? Are there some conversations I can have with people in the team, or, with people that I work with, or my suppliers, that can actually sort of ensure that, this next week or this next month, that I'm going to be sitting in the positive, not in the negative? And then the third question to ask yourself is, what am I learning that will help next week's budget better, or next month's budget better? What is it that I've actually learned in this process? And how can I turn that learning into a new habit for me, so that I continue to do this week in or month out for the rest of the year? And it becomes almost a habit, or a natural process for you to be looking at this every single week, every single month. Because I can guarantee you, if you get into that type of routine, that you will have a much better outcome come the end of the year.
I love the habit aspect there, because once you get into, I call it with my clients, these profit-making habits, then profit becomes a habit, or making profit becomes a habit. And it sounds really simple, but it's true. I have clients as well that, they're scrutinizing the dollars and the cents more than I am now as the business coach. And they're, it's like a game for them. How do we get even more out of next month without, jeopardizing quality or customer satisfaction or anything like that? So it has truly become a habit for people. I have a question, Tony, that I thought of on your first point there. You said weekly or monthly. Like, how often should people be tracking the budget versus the actuals? Like, is it monthly? It might depend, but when's the best frequency around this?
It's a really interesting question, Chris. And I sort of, try to actually sort of help people to see that you should be doing this monthly by minimum. You should be looking at this level of detail every single month as a business owner. If it was my business, I would be looking at it weekly, because I learned that come the end of the month, retrospectively, I couldn't do anything about that month that had just gone by.
Yes.
And if you leave it for 3 months or 6 months, it's like you can't do nothing. It's like that's gone, it's past. Whereas if I look at them every week and I see something, or there's something that I know that I could do, or could make a difference, then the following week might actually avail that and make it all better for the end of the month. So although I do say monthly as minimum, ideally, if you can do it weekly, then I can guarantee that you will get there quicker and faster and bigger and better.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's great. So really upping the frequency on how often you're across these sorts of things. And I also like the proactive nature when you were saying, like, what can you be doing to change the numbers, or make the adjustments that you need to, so that you can improve the next period, whether it's the next fortnight or the next month or so on. Many people will get a result financially and then do the same thing the following week, or the same thing the following month. They won't actually make those adjustments required and go, "Ooh, my labor cost is a bit high. Things might be slowing down because it's the time of the year. Perhaps I'll pull back on my labor budget because I'd allocated more, but my sales aren't there. So I need to pull in a little bit." I've also got another example where I've got clients that have small tools and small equipment budgets or numbers set in place, but they aren't able to spend that money if they're not making the money sales wise. So if the sales are low, then obviously in comparison, the tooling and the small equipment budget amounts are also pulled back to go, well, hey, we're not making the sales, so we need to pull back a little bit on this. And they really have to start monitoring what's happening. And obviously they're trying to keep the sales growing at the same time. Do you have any examples at all, Tony, that you could share with us where maybe your clients put some work into practice and created a budget and maybe an outcome that they supplied? I know I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit, but I'm not sure if you have a case study or an example that you could kind of share with us in some way.
Oh, there's lots, Chris. And one thing I just want to, highlight, because I think this was really important. And I got this from you, and I think it was from one of the masterminds that we attended. And it's not about looking, it's about doing. You can look at your numbers and you can, observe them, you can run through them, but it's actually more what you do as an outcome of actually what you've seen or what you've learned from looking at the numbers. So you need to actually, craft a to-do list from this. Even if you're looking at them every week or every month, it's like, what do I now have to do in order to actually, make sure that this happens next month, or that we get better than this next month? It's that to-do list, which is actually sort of going to change what you do and how you do things. And before I share, an example with you, and I've got one that I think will be relevant for most people, is a really simple analogy about budgeting, and I came across this, and it just resonated with me. And I think if you think about it in terms of what it actually sort of means, or how it can help you, every time you think about this, it actually might sort of really sort of, I'm going to say, shine some light on it. But the analogy is, it's like when you talk about budgeting, it's like turning the light on in a dark room. So you know what it's like when you walk into a really dark room. Well, imagine what it's like when you turn the light on. You're able to see things clearly. You're able to see what the obstacles are in front of you. And as a result, you'll be able to actually find your way around them. It's exactly the same when it comes to putting a budget together. Think of flicking that switch and going, I can now see what's in the dark room. I can see the obstacles ahead of me, and I can start to plan in order to actually sort of find ways in which I can make it through to the other side of the room without actually stumbling over everything along the way.
Yeah, that's a fantastic analogy. And so hopefully that's turned the lights on for some business owners out there. Excuse the pun.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I've got a good example, and I suppose it goes back to my early coaching days. It was probably one of my first clients. And he had a particular business that he didn't know the numbers in at all. Like he was basically saying it was the accountant's responsibility and it was the bookkeeper's job to manage all of the numbers and the money and everything else. And then I made it very clear to him that that was the position that I was in for the first 5 years that I ran my business, and I had to sort of turn things around for him very, very quickly. And the first thing we did was we set ourselves a budget for 3 months, and we sat down and we invested a fair amount of time just really detailing everything that we needed to do from a sales perspective, where that sales was coming from. We actually sort of targeted a whole number of different areas so that we could break it down. And then we started to break down what all of the costs were in the business. And it was at that moment, and I'm going to use our analogy and say the light bulb came on. And I could almost sort of see it in his eyes, because it made it really quite clear to him at that point that his business was going backwards. Wow. It wasn't making money, it was actually going backwards. And he had never seen this before. And it wasn't until this point that it actually all sort of fell into place for him. So he then was asking me the questions in terms of, so if I do more sales, then that will cover my cost and then I can make profit. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how this is going to work. And it wasn't very long at all. I'm going to say a few days before I had a call saying, wow, this is actually like really changed everything for me about what I do in terms of running my business. He said, wow. I thought it was more about me just, managing my business rather than managing sort of, running my little business. Then it was about me worrying about the numbers. And he said, this has really helped me just sort of see that this is probably the most important thing about, being a business owner. And from that moment on, and to this day, that person is still running a very successful business.
Yeah, wow. A couple of days.
How quick was the turnaround?
Far out. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so good. And look, I think I know who you're speaking about. I've got clients that go through the same sort of experience as well, particularly when it comes to making money and securing profit in their businesses. So it's one of those things you have to invest the time. Like you said, get into it and do it. Don't
Yeah.
shy away from it. And hopefully from this episode today, we've shared enough information for people so that they aren't afraid of doing their own budget. They're prepared to a certain extent to actually do it for doing it themselves, or they know where to turn to and know at least how to start. And hopefully this is just like the catalyst for anyone listening or watching this to actually think about having a crack at preparing a budget, or speaking to their accountant or bookkeeper or even a coach like us about actually doing one for theirs. Have you got any final words on budgeting, Tony?
Nothing sort of, significant. Only to sort of say, Chris, is that, we all have to start somewhere, and we're all good at things. We've all been given a gift that everybody possesses. Some of us, it's about numbers. Some of it's about selling. But it's easy to get the gift of understanding sort of numbers within your business. Like I said, you don't have to be an accountant. All you need to do is just start that journey, invest a little bit of time, do a little bit of research, get some help and support around you, and it can turn things around for you, and it can change everything in your business.
Yeah, right. That's fantastic. And that change, from the story that you've shared with us, can literally change in a matter of days, if not quicker than that as well. So that's fantastic. Hopefully you've taken away some great takeaways from this episode today. If you have any questions, by the way, shoot them through to us at askitupcoach.com.au. Or if you need help with this, like Tony's the guy. So throw us an email, askitupcoach.com.au. Attention, Tony, I need help with a budget. And Tony, on screen right now, will flick you an email or give you a call and get in touch for free, which is pretty bloody cool. Yes. Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time again, Tony.
Thanks, Chris. It was awesome. Lovely to share, and hopefully people get a lot out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be back with another episode of Coaching Conversations again next week. So bye now.
Bye for now.